Hey there, it's your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host, Sharfuz. We know that job search is a difficult process. It can be frustrating, it's hard to network, find the right fit for yourself, and it can be a very lonely journey.
Here at Careers Uncorked, we're trying to bridge that journey and have amazing conversations with people.
And we want to welcome you to our episode today.
Hey Ali,
Hey,
happy 2021.
Yeah, crazy. I don't think it's a real yet, but here we are.
Yep, it's exciting, and it's really funny to see Sharfuz's face in the introduction, and then we surprise everyone with you.
Not sure.
That is so awesome. All right, I'm really excited for today's session. To be honest, I've always been huge on branding and design. Actually, my major back in college was computer science with focus in human-computer interaction. So I've personally always been huge on branding and also advertising. And I'm really excited to hear about this. But I know you personally have a background in advertising too. So can you talk to us a little about that and what you're looking forward to from this session?
Yeah, totally. So my major similarly was digital communication. So I do all things marketing and went on to do a second degree in digital storytelling. So this is like all my favorite things: marketing, branding, advertising. So I'm just super pumped to hear what Valev has to say today.
Same here. And since we are having a conversation about branding, we have decided to bring out some wine. And what do we have there, Alia?
I have a rosé.
Rosé. And let's welcome Val to the stage. Let's see what he has to drink to.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? How are you? Thank you for having me, by the way. Yeah, and thanks for this wonderful happy hour. Because I just finished my work session. So cheers, everybody. Having a little handmade margarita thing. Very New York, right?
Yeah. We just learned about this handmade margarita. Oops, sorry. We learned about this handmade margarita and we were really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish you could. Yeah, we should like teleport this to you so I can taste it. But it's not my own brand, so we're not going to do kind of brand advertising here. But otherwise, totally would.
I was on a call early in the pandemic with there was a SaaS company that they were supposed to do like a wine night with their customers, and then the pandemic hit. This was like in March, and so the woman was presenting on how they actually just sent the wine to all the customers, and they still had a wine tasting. And I was like, "That's amazing! Talk about like that turnaround and like just such a cool experience." But just make it on Zoom.
Yeah, and I mean, so much of the culture has changed. I mean, living here in New York, it's kind of a habit for just colleagues to go, and have a happy hour together after work. So all of that kind of interaction is gone. So yeah, I think we're still pretty good at like Zoom calls and having group chats and all that, but the social part of it is gone.
Right.
So that's one way of doing it. Yeah, introducing something fun and just social and casual to the whole mix.
Very true.
Totally.
All right. Yeah. So with that, Alia, do you want to kick us off?
Let's
short some questions of Val.
Yeah. So the first question is pretty general. We just love to hear like your background. Like, tell us a little bit about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm Valev Laube. Originally from Estonia, went to school in Italy, went to an international high school there called the United World College of Adriatic, and then studied like both of you at the University of Rochester from 2014 until 18. So I studied digital media, and currently I have my own company called the VL Studios. It's a creative design and brand marketing agency. We mainly focus on now a new thing that we actually just introduced this year due to people kind of struggling with this more interactive digital way of communicating and collaborating. So we introduced like brand consultation, and we're also doing some technical support for those situations. But otherwise, we focus on brand building that includes web design, graphic design, search engine optimization, some like social media creative productions, and brand acceleration, which is all focused on social media marketing. So that's what I do. I have a background in music. I play violin. That's kind of a hobby now. I don't have much time to do that anymore, unfortunately. But there's still some stuff out there. And just yesterday, I also launched like an art store to put up some of the digital artworks that I've been doing throughout the years.
Wow.
So that's available now. But it's really that whole artistic side has taken like a back seat, unfortunately, especially now during COVID, trying to keep the company running and all the clients engaged. So yeah, it's not much of a focus, but that's what I love doing.
Definitely, as a founder, it's like you have to just like take it all on when it hits the fan. So yeah, we totally understand that over here at Cruise Uncorked. But I so love that you're into digital art. I actually do digital art as well. So that's amazing.
So did you study digital media at the university or what?
So my undergrad, I did an interdepartmental. It was digital communications. So the digital art is like kind of on the side, but I did take some DMS classes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Great. Sid, do you want to take it off? Speaking of undergrad.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, we're all from University of Rochester, and we sort of bumped into Valve with different situations during our time. So a couple of questions I want to sort of get started with is, first of all, Valve, what drew you into branding?
So it was kind of it's been a kind of a journey, because when I was a kid growing up in southern Estonia, in a very teeny tiny village of, I would say maybe 200 people, 300 people, really tiny, and post-Soviet and kind of in a way kind of run down, and there was a lot of change taking place after the collapse of the Soviet Union and in the beginning of 2000s and joining the European Union. So one of the kind of forefronts of Estonia is that we are very proud of being the first country to establish e-residencies, being the first country to do online voting nationwide, having the digital ID cards already since, I might be wrong, but I think like 2006 or 2008, around there.
Wow.
So Estonians are very, very proud of that. And Estonians were also one of the first countries to kind of push for the whole concept of internet as being a human right. So when I was a child, I had access to internet, and thanks to my sister, she was, we have quite a big age gap, but she was already working for a cultural institution in Estonia and doing some music productions, traditional music and CDs and festivals and all that stuff. So she was the one who came home and first introduced me to graphic design. She was like, "Oh, could you find me Adobe InDesigner?" And I'm like, "What is this program?" It's like 3 gigabytes to download. The internet speeds back then, ADSL, right? It's going to take hours. And that's kind of where the graphic design got started. And then I was, studying music. I didn't really, I wasn't super passionate about it. But then a few years later, I became involved in like a folk music band and started kind of performing. Then I moved to the second biggest city. So it's been an exploration of different kind of sides and things that my sisters have kind of pushed me to do or inspired me to do, as well as my, mother. And it's worked in phases. So first there was the graphic design that came on, then there was music or performance. I mean, I studied music earlier, but really performing. And once I got to Rochester, it became more kind of digital and learning about web design and learning about the technical aspects of things and presentation and bringing these past experiences that I had all together. So eventually, because then also like I started doing like mainly focusing on web design or mainly focusing on one or the other thing. And eventually just kind of made sense. And as I was doing freelance work, it kind of just dawned on me that the reason why people value me and my work isn't because of one specific skill, but it's because of understanding the business model, the search engine optimization aspects, and understanding that design isn't there to be beautiful or just to be for me as a designer, but it's really there to convey a certain message and, be purposeful and support the business structure. So that's when it all came together, and that's when I realized that I think branding is the direction to take, and that's when we formed the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting story. So I want to dive a little deeper into two of these segments. One is how did college sort of help boost this passion of yours to get into branding and design? Like what were the things you did and what were the things you were able to pick on while you were in college? Like what was that like? And then second of all, I also want to learn a little more about why did you choose to start your own company as opposed to what most people do out of college is like go work for a design consulting agency or something like that.
It's really odd because when I think back at university and what happened throughout the whole 4 years, I would say the biggest value that I took out of it were kind of the experiences and because when I came to the United States, I mean, coming here as an immigrant and on a visa, you have a lot of restrictions in place. And already in Italy, I was involved in some freelance work and newspaper designs, layout designs, that type of work. And then I came here and I was like, whoa, like because of these restrictions, I can't just continue doing that.
Right.
So that was one of the big challenges that, I was kind of disappointed and annoyed and I felt like kind of somebody had like chopped off my wings kind of because I always did my studies. Yeah. And I would kind of utilize those skills on the side by actually doing work, even if there were small projects for like $25, just anything small, but I would always apply them in the real world and I wasn't able to do that. So I think the biggest influence once I, understood the system and how it worked and how to navigate this was just, getting my job at the Redner Hall for Media Arts and Innovation Center, right? Which I eventually became one of the, head managers there, of student employees. But I think the fact that I had such an amazing employer, Berthini Coltrane, who was so flexible and inspiring and open to new ideas, I think that was the biggest push and the biggest thing that I learned. Because at the end of the day, what you learn in college or university is kind of the skill, but you don't really know how to use the skill until you go and use it.
Right.
So having that opportunity of working even on campus, and we did even some projects, off campus that she had. She was like, hey, my uncle is doing this or something. Could you help me a little bit out here and there? I think that's how I really learned the most of understanding what's the difference between just doing a design or project to meet the requirements versus understanding and listening to what the clients want and need, because sometimes they don't know what they want or need.
Right.
But you have to have that conversation and kind of read between the lines and learn how to interpret. And then I had another moment when I did the Art New York program here in New York. So I actually eventually became the creative design manager in a startup company, Midtown, which I'm super proud of because they just won the Forbes Under 30 nomination, the whole company. So I'm super proud of them and what they've done and how they've grown. But and I went and brought them a little present last year, and I was so excited for them. So, but what I also learned there, for example, was the fact that because it was a small company, I was always neck to neck with salespeople and with managers and designers and interns. So even when I was doing different type of work, I could hear the struggles that the salespeople were going through. Or when you had a really tough manager who was like, you really need to do this now. And if you go to a trade show and you're coming back with less than 40 business cards, I mean, then you got to go back there and get 40 more. Otherwise, don't come back. So it was a very tough environment, but but I loved learning about it, and I actually wanted to stay in that kind of small business energetic environment where I could learn more than, as just being a designer in a corporate world. Or, I have friends who work for Google, and they do only a certain task, and they only collaborate with their own team. And I was always more interested in that holistic approach of what else is going on there. Because design isn't in vacuum. We all influence, like, my design influences the sales pitch of a sales guy, or it influences the experience that a customer has on social media. They're all, intertwined, and I think I was the most passionate about that, and that's why I wanted to create the company, to have a company that really takes all of this into account and make sure that the first experience that a customer has with a brand is harmonized and aligning with the overall brand vision, as opposed to just doing one aspect of it and it not really, working in the grand scheme of, things. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just what you said, I couldn't have said it any better. It came out so beautifully. I think what you described, first of all, about your manager at Retner Media Lab, that sounds like such an amazing opportunity to be able to be involved in practically doing stuff as opposed to just doing your day-to-day job. So I think that's a wonderful experience. And then
the technology we had at Retner, I mean, the gadgets to play with.
Right.
Like, there were all sorts of cameras we had, and the other thing about Berthenia was that she always encouraged us to learn and experiment with these gadgets. So that if we had a student who came in and wanted to, borrow one of those items, we could teach them a little bit, at least how to get started. So I managed to, the Google classes when they were a big thing, or various different GoPros, or 3D printing, or 3D scanning, that I don't, on a daily basis is not part of my work anymore. But still, I had just the jewelry company that I was working with today, they asked me questions about how to present the jewelry in 3D. And at least I have a grasp of, we could either scan this, or we could do a 360 photo situation, and then use HTML5 to upload that so that it just rotates based on the photos.
Cool.
Or, there's so many different options, but if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't know the different options that are even available.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And then speaking about your entrepreneurial experience, you mentioned that you wanted a holistic opportunity where you would be able to interact with various people. I think that's really awesome that you mentioned, because that's simply what entrepreneurship is, right? Like, you're not only dealing with brand anymore, you're dealing with sales, you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with customers that may be difficult to work with. And all those things, you wouldn't really have the opportunity if you were, let's say, a design consultant at a firm. So that's just amazing to hear.
Yeah, and that's one of the core values of the VLO Studios, that we want to, on top of making a beautiful website for you and optimizing it for SEO, we want to make sure that every first point of exposure or contact that a customer or a viewer has with your brand harmonizes with what you want them to do, or what the experience is that you're kind of inviting them into. So your website can be gorgeous, and sales structures and sales funnels, they might work really well, but then your social media icons or profile picture or cover photo, they don't align with this. Or even if you Google something, you can have now preview photos of your website on Google that show up in mobile devices, and if the person has, if you have there an awful low quality version of your logo, or if the logo image is cropped somehow, it adds into the overall experience of, you can have an expensive, like I have a law firm that I'm working with, and that's one of the things that they were struggling with, that their website eventually looked amazing, but then if you Googled them, the logo was pixelated, it was kind of cropped oddly, because it's a very wide logo, but the space on Google is kind of square sized. So, and we fixed that, because if somebody Googles them, they might not even open up the website if that first image is not, doesn't give that positive kind of impression.
Very true.
Totally. I think this is a perfect description of what branding and good marketing is. So I'm like over here with the hard eyes from the hard answers.
That's great.
This is great. I love this. So to dig a little bit deeper into the VL Studios, what were the steps that you took to create the business?
The what? Sorry.
The business.
The business.
Studios.
So
yeah,
that was also it was an odd thing and a surprise to me that would even work. I didn't want to create a company. I didn't want to co-found a company. I was eager to learn more and stay in a small company like the one that I worked for beforehand. And it took me by surprise that a good friend of mine was like, "Hey, I think we should do this," because he thought that what I was already doing was essentially what needed to be done for a startup to succeed. And he approached me, and he was kind of, because I was also annoyed by certain things in life, and he was like, "Hey, why are you annoyed? I think whatever you're doing is exactly, I think that you should create a company and get rid of some of these limitations and struggles that you have, and you're essentially already doing it." So I didn't think that I had the strength or capacity to do this. And then one evening, after one glass of wine, I was like, maybe let's get it done. Because it's really hard, especially for some people. Like I'm an overthinker, and I need my plan B and plan C and plan D.
Yeah.
And I think there's many people like that. So I was always like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen if this doesn't work and if that doesn't work? So maybe it was the glass of wine that just gave me that little extra like relaxation and being like, oh, I think he's right. Because before I was very reluctant. And then we put up actually an investment posting, which to an American like angel investors portal. And I didn't think that anything would come out of it, because it's a service-based business. It's not highly, easily scalable, quickly scalable business structure model. And I think it was, and then somehow in 2 weeks, I got a response that, 2 people are interested. And I still didn't understand. I'm like, why would you be interested? But then we integrated kind of my co-founder Vasim Askol's background in data science and data processing and understanding really the data part of it. And he already had a startup which was focused on artificial intelligence and virtual reality, and for the use of kind of educational purposes and how to create these virtual classrooms and all that stuff. So we talked about this, and we looked at some numbers and things, and we tried to come up with a business model that is very much a design, service provider agency, but it is not just a web design company that just, spits out these designs on a daily basis. And I never wanted it to be that way. So when we looked at the numbers and the clients that I already had and partners that I was working with, it started making sense, and especially his background which is in data science, that kind of coming up with these new ways of scaling the business quicker than otherwise might be possible. So introducing certain algorithms and kind of automated steps to the operations of the business. That really helped me kind of solidify the whole concept, and then we got an investor and we got started, and it there was not much of an investment needed for a business like this to begin with. But I think the fact that somebody trusted us and was believed in this concept also made me kind of believe in it, and help me understand that maybe it could work out, because this this is the type of industry that's so tough to get into, and there's such big players.
Yeah.
And most startup companies fail within a couple of years anyway.
Sure.
So that's just reality, and I think we should all know that. So you might have a great idea, but then you have management issues or you have operational issues that you're running into, and there's been definitely issues along the way. But it's the fact that I think Vasim put in all that kind of data expertise helped me figure out the automated kind of things that we could automate.
Right.
And then the fact that we got the previous kind of clients and partners on board already jump-started our beginning, that we didn't have to go out and seek for new first clients. We already kind of had them. And at the end, it really, the only missing link was kind of management, and then management scaling. So, and that's really where the investor, he's been in the industry for 25 years, and that's where his expertise came in. So it really came together nicely. And I mean, we're still building it and working on it totally every day. But I think that's when they just linked up nicely.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like tied up with a bow. That's great.
Yeah.
And so powerful too to have that feeling that somebody believes in you. I feel like that's like really pushes you over the edge of like, oh, this like person that doesn't know me wants to support. So that's great. So you just mentioned that you had clients previously. How did that work when you were they your freelance clients before, and then you kind of brought them with you when you started the VL studio?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it worked. So for example, as an international student, the other thing that I kept doing once I figured out the whole process was that if you're on an F1 visa, you have the OPT and CPT extensions. So if you have ongoing projects that last for a couple of months, you can actually work with your university international office, depending on your university. And if the work that you're doing is in your field, then you can get the university to approve that internship or paid internship or work that you're doing, and gain that practical experience, and also make some income, which a lot of international students don't know. So you really got to build that communication with your university, because essentially your university is your sponsor, and that's what I did while I was in university. The whole the last 2 years, that's kind of what I kept on doing. So whenever I found a project that was kind of considerable and big enough, I would jump on it and communicate with my university to make sure that it's all legal and allowed, and gain that extra experience. And I think that's also so important for a lot of, at least when I came to the this university here, I feel like in the United States there's this kind of, I mean, people are entrepreneurial, but they don't really, compared to some of my friends in certain European universities, I feel like they do a lot of testing and trying out things, while Americans tend to be a little bit more reserved and really build up their skill, and even then a little bit hesitant of well, should I create a company? I mean, it's going to get so difficult and complicated, and it is. But I think you should at least apply your skill in a freelance format and gain that experience, because at the end, also when you're going to the workforce, your skill is one thing, but understanding the client communications and relations and translating the client message to what you're producing, I think is even bigger asset than the skill that you might acquire. And I think I encourage everybody to do that. Plus, on top of this, if you can find a job, currently, with COVID, it's really complicated, you can still continue at least somewhat supporting yourself by doing part-time job or freelancing. So that's really, and that really jump-started also the company, because people knew me and certain clients already knew about me. So once the company got solidified, the clients became even more confident in buying into this whole concept and these services that we were providing.
Yeah, you had a name, you had a brand.
Yeah, and it's your personal brand that really, if you're starting a new company, and I was just talking to my client here today who started a new jewelry business, and amazing products and amazing designs. But for example, he spent, I think, 25 years in corporate world, never built a social media presence, never built a personal brand.
Mhm.
And it's so much harder to start a new company if you don't have the backing of your own kind of follower, your
Yeah.
own
Right.
personal fans, friends, and having them all in one platform and feeling comfortable with the platform and transferring over to your new company business. And it's a huge asset to have, especially if you're going to get a small job or a partnership in a startup, to have already followers in your community there, that you could bring with you to this new place that you're gonna apply your skill in. So that new company or wherever you're going, or new project, maybe you're only doing festival production for the summer, but you have an audience that cares about you, and that's a big asset when you're applying.
Very true. And I think that extends outside of just even starting a business. I think for most of our viewers, even college students looking to apply for jobs, I think that branding aspect is very important. It allows you to connect with people who you may have even never known, just because you have a brand and you have this brand presence. What are your thoughts about that, Val? Like, about people trying to start their career? How can a brand play an important role in that?
Well, one thing I wanted to say recently that really connected with me was watching The Futures. It's The Future without an E at the end. It's a great design, kind of educational platform and agency in West Coast, and they had a video about social media and how we should reject the idea that our Instagram feed is our portfolio. Because a lot of us feel like, oh, we're going to put the best image of ourselves up there. We're going to put our work up there. Actually, what social media is about discussions, conversations, and interactions. What is the value that you're bringing and your brand is bringing there to other people's lives? So yes, there are some people who are extremely beautiful and you look gorgeous, and we're going to just enjoy just that mere beauty of you. And that's great if you use it to your advantage. I don't think that there's any shame in that. But at the end of the day, if you're creating a company brand, especially, but even if you're a freelancer and or you just feel like personally you're more shy, like that's not your persona to put your yourself out there, or your half naked body out there, and you shouldn't be forced into doing that, right? Then how do you create experiences that talk to and connect with your followers, and engage and create these conversations that are meaningful for them? And this is really what we should be thinking about. Like, your portfolio can be on your website, your in-process kind of videos, how you made this artwork or how you made a logo. Upload that to YouTube or Instagram, right? Or upload like an in-progress story thing and ask people, hey, what do you think? What could I do better? And even I do this on a daily basis. Like, I have my own website, my own company website that I posted on Facebook group, and I ask people, hey, I just put in some modifications. What do you think I could improve? What do you think we could do better? And in a way, it's promoting me, yes. But it is not promoting me in this kind of cocky way where it's like, well, look at my website, buy my services. It is really, again, providing an opportunity of engagement for people to tap in and contribute and say something about me, creating that opportunity to even critique. And some people might be nasty, yeah, but that's also fine. That's still engagement, because when you think of social media is all about numbers. So even if you have negative engagement, it's actually going to work in your advantage, unfortunately. That's just how the systems are built. But it's really, so I would say, if you're building your brand or starting off as a freelancer, just think of the experiences and the discussions you want to encourage on that platform. and how they could benefit people. And you don't have to be the smartass who's always saying, "Hey, do this, this, this." Like these are the 3 steps how to become successful. You don't have to. You don't have to take that superior position in order to be successful on social media. Sometimes just sharing that. When I created the company on LinkedIn, I actually asked the question, what are some of the team management platforms that you guys use, all my friends? What do you use to manage your team? Because I think I'm noticing that in my team, we're having some team management issues. So what do you use? What do you think people would, what do they, how, and how you use them and why you use them? Because even at Redner Hall, we tried all kinds of different ways of communicating. We tried GroupMe, which ended up working very great. We tried Yammer, which didn't work great. But GroupMe, we can share the files, and every person works a little bit differently. So even just reaching out and saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. How could you help?" I think that's amazing way of providing some, valuable moments into people's lives without you dictating anything to them.
I love that you're calling people in to your brand, and you're also being really candid, which I think is something that people generally don't feel like they can be on social media. It's like you have the persona and you're trying to be a certain way, but instead it's being real and saying, "Hey, I'm having this problem," or "Hey, this is in the middle of work in progress." So I love that.
And also giving away a little bit of your power and a little bit of your ideas. Like I've had situations where there's a startup company and I know a founder who has so many amazing ideas, and then she will come to me and she's like, "Oh, I want to do this and this and this, but I don't have time." And I'm like, "Well, put it up on social media and see, maybe somebody has time for this, and maybe they want to partner up, and maybe you could team up somehow together." Because sometimes it's important not to be precious about your ideas. Especially if you think that these are ideas that would be really good for the world, and if you know that the people who would take over these ideas actually are trustworthy and you trust them and you would give credit, and etc. You help each other. So you have to understand your own limits, because it's always better if somebody else does it well than you doing it, badly.
Very, very true. And I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons, and also how we started Careers Uncorked. I mean, Alia and I met through a LinkedIn post. We put it out there in the world, and we were like, "Oh, anyone wants to help out with this?" And it was we had a bunch of people raise their hands. So definitely very true. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but the comment section is blowing up right now.
It's amazing. I love it.
Inspired a lot of people right there. Well,
that's great.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Agreed. Oh, this is great. Yeah.
Yep. Wow. All right. So
could you guys tell us a little bit more about your background? And because I think everybody we have, so I see some of my friends that are here that would also love to hear about you for just a second. And because I also don't know enough. It's been many years. I mean, we I remember us at Redner Hall, yes, but I think what you've been up to now, and I think that would be a great little brief minute or 2 minutes of also hearing about you guys.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest things is, for me, I got really into design when I first had my internship at Deloitte. And they put me in a room with a bunch of strangers, and they called it a design thinking session. And I was very confused, and I apologize. I think Valev has just got to step away for a minute, but we'll be right back. But in this design thinking session, what ended up happening was that they put me up there as the intern, and being the intern, I was held the responsibility of writing on all these sticky notes and placing them at different places.
Intern writes on the sticky notes. I love that.
Yeah. And there's 2 problems with that. One is I'm really bad with spellings, and number 2 is I was freaking out because I was an intern. But that was my sort of introduction to this whole design thing, and I really realized how big of a role that plays in not only just consulting, but in every major aspect of business. And Ali, I think you would probably have some experiences too, since you're running your own branding agency. I mean, so far from listening to Valev, what are your thoughts on the whole aspect of defining your own brand?
Right. I think this is amazing. It's a great conversation. Everything he's saying is really powerful, and I totally agree. I think there's different levels of like your personal brand and then the company brand, and like kind of weeding through that for me has been a struggle. And like, do I want my freelance work to be under my name or my like create a different name, which is what I ended up doing is creating a separate name for my business, so I can kind of like separate and be a little bit private about that. But yeah, it's for me, it's been an ongoing thought. I'm like thinking about the branding of me for finding work, like a full-time job, and then also thinking about branding of my my freelance work and how that kind of fits in with who I actually am. And it's interesting what he was saying about social media, because I think that there's so much pressure on social media. In a way, we have a big advantage because we're digital natives. But on the other hand, it's difficult because there's so much to juggle when it comes to our online presence, especially when there's like LinkedIn, Instagram. I have 2 websites, and there's a lot going on to figure out the brand of.
Very true. All right. So as we move on to this next section, I'd like to bring back Valev. So I think something that we want to talk about next is advice for entrepreneurs. And as we are jumping into this section, any of our viewers, make sure to leave comments with any questions you have. I know there's one question left by our very own Sharfuz up top, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. So to get us started with advice for entrepreneurs, I think one of the first questions I have, and this is what I was genuinely curious about looking at your LinkedIn and also watching some of your YouTube videos, was being Estonian, you've come to the US and you started a company in New York City. Like, that sounds like the dream. Like, what was it like for you to get through this whole process and ending up like starting a business in New York City?
Oh, it's not glamorous. It's not fun. like people, you would think you watch movies and you're like, oh yeah, like this, big glass building, and
Right.
that's actually one of the fancy buildings where we had the opening events. So I mean, I guess I'm a little bit hypercritical there, but you have this expectation. What I wanted to say before we run into this is I actually really loved how you said you have so many social media platforms, you don't know how to manage them all, or like you have so much to do. And that's one of the first struggles that I also had, because there was me, there was Vasim, there were a couple of friends of mine and kind of contractors that helped out with a few projects here and there. But social media takes up so much time. So you're just like, how can I even manage and control all of these platforms? And you really have to prioritize and pick your battles there. You can't do it all.
Yeah.
So in some cases, while working with clients, it's also odd. I think every designer could say that it's always easier to give advice to your clients, and it's always easier to give advice to somebody else than yourself and do it.
Yep.
It's just I think it's also like, just when it's your own kind of baby that you're working on, and you've been working on this for a while, and you keep overthinking, and you keep also thinking that, oh, I need to prove something and I have to include every single piece in there.
Right.
Well, that's not the case. You should always look at the other way around. When you create a company or a brand, you're creating it from the point of view of somebody else, and in a framework that other person is kind of perceiving this through. So if you're putting up something on YouTube it's not the same language that you would use on Facebook or Instagram.
Totally.
And that is really intimidating, because even if you know this, you're like, well, now how am I going to come up with 3 different types of posts for 3 different types of platforms? So it gets even worse, and your anxiety levels, they're already through the roof. You're trying to build up your accounting system and legal stuff and register your company, and you're just going insane. So what I've discovered when we created this is one of the first things that we did was automating as many things as we can. So the legal stuff got registered, that was fine and done. And it's really the investor who helped a lot with wording some of these things and getting them kind of done right from the start. The other thing was, and that was one of my suggestions when Wasim and we got together, and I was like, well, how are we going to do the invoices? Like, I don't want to generate a new invoice for every single person, even if it's 15 minutes, 25 minutes, or 30 minutes. Like, how can we streamline this process?
Yeah.
And there's software out there for that, And then again, understanding which programs work together. So setting up your CRM, even if you're not going to use it right from the get-go, setting it up and linking it together with your emailing and booking systems. So either you're using QuickBooks or something else. We use actually Zoho One because they have a really great startup kind of deal that we found. And they have a lot of the products that we needed. Some other people, they might go for Microsoft or other solutions, but really setting that up, because in long term, that saved so much time. When there's an invoice, for example, what we came up with was the fact that there's a lot of different services that we could provide technically, but generating these customized quotes is always very time consuming. So we uploaded all of these different services to a unified system with its own categories, where any of the managers could go in and simply just click check, and it would just export you a project, detailed kind of descriptive proposal, and you can automatically send it to your client. And that links up to your CRM and to your email. And then once the client has approved this, this project details sheet, then automatically it's just one click away when the invoice goes out, and the invoice has, banking details, online payment information, or, where to send the check and stuff. So again, you're streamlining these processes, because otherwise you're going to be putting together your quotes separately. And then you have another email conversation about, invoicing, how to do the payment, how are you processing this? And I was like, well, we don't want to, since it's a small team, we don't want to focus on that. Social media in a similar way. Some of the posts, for example, we chose that the posts we could schedule in advance, but we want the stories to be really authentic and relatable. So we would schedule a couple of months of posts in advance, either certain, tips of how to do branding, how to do marketing, or certain event announcements that we had. So those would be all scheduled. We didn't have to worry about it. We had always something going out. And then the stories we would kind of do as, things progressed. So as, the event is happening, we'll take a little photo and do all that fun stuff. So again, splitting up the platform into like, what is kind of the authentic everyday, me picking my outfit today type of content, and what is the content that provides the overall value from the company, that the people could relate to in long term. Obviously, you're going to have disruptions in there. There's a lot of stuff happening in the United States, this year and the past year, and protests and social movements and things. So you do have to keep an eye on this. You don't want you don't want the wrong message to go out in a wrong context. But at least you have kind of a bigger plan ready, and then you're going to just put in these authentic stories. So that's kind of the strategy that we've taken. And the other thing is that sometimes, even if it's a really busy time period, we're just going to say, whatever, like we don't have time for social media right now, or we're dealing, we have 8 8 other clients who have their 16 social media accounts to manage.
Mhm.
We
Right.
don't have time for this. And that's also fine, because the other thing is that my personal kind of brand and the personal channel that I use a lot, that will still keep going. I mean, it's not like sometimes I'm more quiet than other days, but at least the stories I keep up.
Yeah.
I think those are just so relatable and important. But sometimes you just can't do it all. And the other thing is that if we're already so busy with clients, honestly, if we had more clients coming on, then we couldn't handle it anyway, or the quality of work would drop. So it's really, I mean, I do empathize with everybody who is starting off and trying to navigate this, and how to schedule and which things you could schedule in advance. And it's really time consuming and overwhelming. And I've also seen clients who get stuck in the idea that social media is the most important, and then they forget that actually there's also email newsletters that are important, even though maybe our generation doesn't use them. But when you look at data, then email newsletters have 6 times higher conversion rates to make actually a purchase.
Wow.
Or just understanding the fact that you have different audiences at different places. So the person who's following you on social media is a very different person than the one that you have in your, potential clients email listing, or in your former returning clients email list. And if you neglect those clients that you've had beforehand, and you don't even give them an update or opportunity to come back, or you don't even remind them that you exist. Like I had, after COVID, I got a message from a client who asked me, like, hey, are you still around? And that's when I realized, like, oof, I haven't been doing a good job of keeping my former clients updated. Because if things like this happen, you never know. I mean, I've seen companies that are going out of business, but keeping these, clients that you've already built relationships with and neglecting them, I think that's the worst thing you could ever do. And they need that sort of direct communication. So thinking also as social media being your only outlet for marketing or reaching out, I think that's also a big mistake. There's so many other things, plus ads, plus emails, plus just direct messages. Direct messages are huge. Even a friend of mine from West Coast, I mean, we would just chat and share our ideas, and so Instagram direct messages, and just be like, oh, I love this. And then a year in, we were like, hey, let's do something together. And we were just in each other's radar, and we kind of messaged and kept up with this on a on and off basis. But then at some point we were just on direct message, like there was some sort of post that I made, and he was like, oh, I really love this idea, and I'm actually working on a similar project. Do you want to do like a chat or like an article that we could put together, just some sort of collaboration and cross promote. So a lot of good things come out of just simply doing direct messages or commenting on the posts of your, idols and people who you really love, and then reaching out. So there's just so many other forms of also getting your work out there than just social media. So if you're failing at one of them, don't feel bad. Pick your battles, pick your platforms, and see where your community resides.
It's very well said.
Yeah.
Otherwise
we'll be all depressed.
Right.
Very true. Trying to stop fires in too many directions. I actually over last year I tried a Shopify business for selling T-shirts. So I personally had some experience in trying to figure out these various marketing strategies. So social media was one of the biggest ones, very expensive and low click-through rate. But there were quite a few other, like mailing lists worked very well. There was also text messaging software and stuff like that. So definitely, I think there's so many things to explore.
Another thing about, like, for example, websites and e-commerce that I think a lot of people forget about is that you can now integrate also these push notifications to your website. So maybe text message is too intrusive and people don't like that. but maybe getting a occasional notification in your phone, maybe that's fine.
Yeah, true.
Or in your web browser. So these are, again, like, outlets that we wouldn't necessarily think of, but but yet again, we use them.
Yeah.
So for YouTube, we don't mind if YouTube sends us a notification that, oh, your subscriber, uploaded a new really cool video. We don't mind that, but we don't think that we could use that also for our business, especially when it's a product-oriented, e-commerce-oriented business.
True.
So another way, and you really have to understand your base very well to figure out which one works. And there's a lot of testing that's involved and a lot of data that's involved in that sort of development. But eventually, and not, I think it's also like, once you've figured out kind of your startup formula, like, okay, this works, then really dig in and start using that formula. So there's no reason for you to spend 45 minutes putting together, content for a platform that doesn't work, because again, time, I love, there was there's the issue of time deficit. So there, you've got your time budget out there. If you're spending 45 minutes on producing content for a platform that doesn't bring you any conversions, then you're actually taking away time for something that might bring you in more people. And it's really, and it's really sad that you're really neglecting another portion of your audience.
Very true.
So initially, you got to experiment and test. But at some point, I think, go with it. And then when you have the capacity to start expanding and coming up with these new strategies, then start, expanding. So I'm kind of conservative when it comes to the whole expansion. But that's been my experience.
Wow, that is awesome. 2 questions come to mind. What is your favorite social media outlet? And second of all, do you use TikTok?
No, I don't use TikTok. My favorite, I love Instagram stories. I love Instagram stories. I think they're so authentic, so fun. I think they're still not like, TikTok has a very, it's a very similar medium of communicating, but I think TikTok, what throws me off is the fact that, to me, it's very pop culture and commercial. Like, I love authentic videos and content and occasional, like, fun, quirky dance move in between. But if it's all about, like, quirky dance moves or like sassy, snappy things, then I'm like, I'm not in love. I do keep my eye on this because I think it's a massive platform. And anybody who doesn't, you're just, you're failing. You're not keeping up with what's going on right now. But it's odd because I'm again, the same last client of mine and a client before that, actually. There was a handbag designer, and we were talking about TikTok, and they're clients who look up to, they want to get their products up at moda operandi. They want to get their, they look up to, big kind of luxury brands like Gucci, Armani, Versace. Like, they're, that's kind of where they're playing, and their prices sometimes might be even higher. Like the handbag designer was about, $6,000 a bag. Or I had a, fashion designer whose fur coats and cashmere products, they were like $20,000.
Wow.
And then you're looking, and as we were, talking about this, they were like, well, what about TikTok? And I'm like, yeah, what about TikTok? Like, I honestly don't know what is the perfect formula. And that's why I keep my eye on this, because if I don't, I will fall behind. And it's a whole new generation, the Gen Z, like that's a whole different way of engaging and thinking about things. And we looked at some of these big brands and what they're doing on TikTok, and it's really, it's kind of like hilarious in a way. Like, what you think of these brands is so different than what they're putting up there. And I think I think that again is an example of not being too kind of precious about your brand, because you're really creating experiences, and you need to understand that the demographic and the expected experience on TikTok is very different than the expected experience that you get on Gucci's website or that you get on Instagram.
Sure.
So even if the demographic is the same, the expected experience is very different. And you do need to adapt a little bit to this and create that experience that's still aligning and harmonizing with what you do, but it also engages with that new demographic and that new platform. And we had a conversation. I mean, it's so complicated. It's so hard. And what makes it hard is just the demographic changes. We had a conversation when I was at the Forbes Under 30 Summit in Detroit, Michigan last year. I had a conversation with one of the stage managers there, and she's a little bit older than I am. She's I think 30s, 40s. And she was like, oh my goodness, like Gen X, we thought that we are like too rigid and too, proper. And then millennials came, and millennials wanted adaptability and dynamic brands. And we want different colors. And, the whole adaptable brand concept that started kind of when millennials were, well, MTV is actually one of the first brands that used this logo, but in different ways, depending on the situation. And now you saw, with Hillary Clinton's like political campaign, you also saw how the logo there was the standard logo, official one, that was the blue and red. But then depending on the movement or celebration, kind of the feeling of the logo would always change. And the Ice Cream Museum here in Brooklyn is doing very similar stuff. So there's these like adaptable logos that's really fascinating. But now you're getting Gen Z, and they look up to like people jumping on their beds in sweatpants. And that is a whole different and that, I mean, that's the truth. So, and it's also like on Instagram, you see that millennials were very fixated on, we want the grid to look perfect and Photoshop, but we still want it to be fun. We want organic stuff. And we want to support the environment, and we like social causes. But Gen Z is like a whole, it's not about the social causes, it's just the presentation that's just kind of flip and change. And you saw that with Snapchat, and now TikTok is coming up, which is really a whole different animal. And it's going to be really interesting to see how do you, and luxury brands have been already struggling, right? How do you promote something that's expensive and luxury on a platform that is all about spontaneous, short time span, colorful, pop arty? Like, if your brand doesn't align with the platform, how can you still make it work? And it's really a tricky challenge that I don't know how to solve, and I just keep my eye out for what other brands and people are doing. And we'll see what's going to happen. I think the platform is also going to grow and change as time goes on, but it's really something to think about, how the generations have changed.
Very true.
So,
I love the accurate depiction of people jumping in their sweatpants.
But you have the sweatpant people, like they there's a teenager in the sweatpants every single video, and has like 5-6 million followers.
That's so true.
And people really relate to this. And I think that's something we should learn. We should learn how to be more relatable, that we're not always stiff and rigid and talking in full sentences, but how to get the message across really quickly. Like also what TikTokers did for like Trump campaign or whatever was happening, right? It was really interesting because in my head, I'm like, well, how can even like a video platform influence like a political thing? Like how, right? Like how would you do that? But there are these like weird videos where they're pointing at different sides of the video, and little like pop-up things come up, and it's and it's really something that we should learn how to be more authentic, more relatable, and how to direct messages in still a relatable way, but in
Yeah.
very, very short time span, formats.
Yep.
So we thought that Twitter was short. Now look
Yeah.
at TikTok. It's like you've got your 50 seconds to make a huge world political statement. Like how, I don't know, but we'll see. Some people do it.
Yeah. Very, very true. Well, with that, we've
A lot to
exhausted our
learn.
time. We've been here for over 60 minutes. So thank you so much
Great.
for sticking around. One last section we like to get through is
Yes.
our rapid fire. There's questions from William. How
Get
to
that
close is we ask you questions. We don't want you to think too much about it. Just quickly answer. Alia, why don't you get us started?
Okay. Imagine the like Mario Kart music in the background, like little intensity. Okay, so first question, Shake Shack or In-N-Out?
Shake Shack? Shake Shack? What? Yeah.
Yeah, the burger chain.
Yeah, Shake Shack. Yeah, anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Sid, you're next.
Yep. Best one-line marketing tip.
Just be relatable, be authentic. I don't know. I think that's it. Don't worry about polishing things. Be authentic. Like
That's as authentic as it gets.
Yeah.
All right.
Current favorite book?
Oh lordy. Well, I mean, the most recent one I read was actually Call Me by Your Name. I started reading the actual book and I finished it. So I was like, because it's been a few years since the movie, so I was like, I'm gonna read the actual book.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Who is your role model?
I don't have a single one. I do love, what's her name? I'm so bad at names. Anybody who knows me knows I'm bad at names. The founder starts with an S, from the Pentagram design agency. Look it up. The Pentagram, and the name starts with an S. She's amazing, female, and designer, graphic designer, typography. She's great. She has a great TED Talk. I can put it into the comments.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Alan Flincher, Theo Cosby, Colin Forbes.
Oh, it's a woman.
No. Oh, let me tell you. Last name starts with an S. So her name is Paula Scher.
Oh, Paula Scher.
Paula Scher, yeah.
SCHER.
Yep.
I just love her approach, and she's done some great work. She did the where did the window go? She actually worked on the Shakespeare Theatre here in Central Park, and I mean the Pentagram has done, in general, the most incredible work. When you look up the Pentagram, it's one of the top really U.S. and world's design agencies. They did like Samsung Galaxy S8 icons. They did the Penn Station new interior, all the typography and graphic design. They've you look up the website, you'll know their work. Saturday Night Live, they've done design for them. I don't remember which season exactly, but they've done that. So look up their website. You'll know so many of these brands, and her TED Talk is great. Yeah.
Next question, favorite brand?
Favorite brand? I'm not a very brand loyal person. That's the funny thing. That's what I keep telling to Vasim, and Vasim is like, you do branding. How are you not brand loyal? And I'm like, well, because I know how brands are kind of constructed. So I'm not a brand loyal person. I think brands that have done a really good job. I mean, TikTok brand, for example, is great. It's really playful, fun. Apple brand is for me, brand is not just the visual representation of it. So that's something we didn't really talk about. But I think brand is really what people envision in their heads of what is the company. And there's a fun study actually about when Instagram switched its logo. They asked people to draw the Instagram logo, and then they looked at what did people actually remember of their old logo. And they really remembered a circle, which represents the lens in the old logo, a smaller circle at the corner, which I think is like a lens or something, I'm again like recalling the old one. And then they remembered the rainbow stripes that they had on the side.
Yeah.
And then they remembered Instagram was about like instant, kind of the Polaroids idea. Yeah. So that's why the new logo got that gradient of that rainbow. And that's why you have these simple shapes. So people don't, when people think of brands, I think it's less important to think of the logo and text. It's really more about like, hey, what do you think of it? When you think of Apple, you think reliable, just works, always works. I think just works is even bigger. It's like equivalent to the Apple logo. I think it's as part of their brand as the actual logo. So Apple has done, I think, a nice job. Not a fan of every business decision, but that's just personal opinion. I think the Surface brand is nice. Yeah, I mean, I like the VL Studios brand. So. I like our brand.
Can't beat that one.
Yeah, not humble at all. No, I think there's a lot of great work out there. Yeah, and also social brands are really interesting, like the whole Black Lives Matters movement or like LGBT movement. Looking at it as a brand, I think is really interesting, and analyzing it. What people associate with that movement. Like, is it the logo? Is it something else? Is it something they hear in, their CNN or Fox News? Is it, because those all, put together the perception of the brand. So I think we should really look outside of just commercial brands in order to look for good brands. And I think the impactful brands have been also social brands last year. Sure. They've done a lot of great stuff.
Very true. All right. It is time for our last question.
Great.
Who is your favorite co-host, Ali or Sid? One finger and pick one of us.
Well, I know which way. Well, I love you. I like you both. I mean, I didn't know Alia before, so I would pick her.
Oh, thank you.
That's fair enough.
So I'm gonna pick her. Because I don't think we've ever like interacted or talked, unless I'm missing something. But I don't think so. So it's been very pleasant, very nice.
Yeah. Right back at you. Well, thank you. I every time I've been a co-host, I've won favorite co-host. So I have like a good streak going on. So I really thanks for.
Sid, you gotta get your wig on and some makeup and long hair.
Is there a wig? Do you have a wig?
No,
well, I mean, just it's long hair.
Yeah, long hair.
Oh,
I did have long hair. Not as long as all yours, but yeah, cool. Let's get to it. Let's close off the curtains, and thank you so much for being here. This has been an awesome 73 minutes. This is really, really great. We learned so much. Just to round things off, I know quite a few people here actually came in with a question about how they can start their own personal brand. So is there a few words that you would like to share about how people can get started, imagining that they're coming with like no social media, no branding background? How could someone get started on that journey?
Well, there's a couple of things. So I think every industry is a little bit different and what you're working on. So if you're in creative industries, there's, I think, a big emphasis is on your kind of headshots and creative presentations, media content that you're putting out there. Also your SEO and just taking control over what's available of you on Google. I think that's really important because once again, like we talked about this today, if somebody's gonna oftentimes they might not even remember your website, so they're just gonna Google you, and this is really the first moment that they see anything about you. So if you're a musician, creative person, creator, you can actually get that featured highlighted card up there. That's with a little bit of SEO optimization. For any other industries, just get it going, put your work out there. I think don't be too ashamed of it. Don't overthink this. Social media is really a testing ground. It's a very short attention span platform. So if something doesn't work out, it's probably going to be forgotten. Like, the good and the bad side of this, it will be probably. So really do testing, put it out there. And the final thing is that also under the VL Studios, I made available like a complimentary consultation. I think it's 15 or 20-minute consultation. So if you want to ask some questions, you can schedule a consultation there, going to thevlstudios.com. It's under services, right? The first section is about consultation. There's a link, or just bookings.thevlstudios.com. And then, yeah, like, let's reconnect, or just send me a direct message, or on contact page, an actual, email. Happy to help.
That is awesome. I will make sure to drop the link in there for people to go to your website. I think that's an awesome service, even if it's just for 20 minutes. I think there's so much to learn from you.
Yeah, and you can also, I include there, I say there that you should, if you have a website already up there, include a link so that we can be super productive within that 15 minutes, and just, you can tell me a little bit about yourself and what your goals are, and then I can give some feedback.
Wow, that is awesome. All right, winner of favorite co-host. Any words to wrap this up?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Valev for being here. I think this was an amazing session. I feel like we could have just kept talking for another hour. Yeah, thanks so much. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience did too.
Thank you. It's been super fun. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you again, Valev. It's been great. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. We want you to join our community.
You do?
Join us by hitting that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the awesome content we have in store for you.
Oh yeah, and one more thing. Make sure to smash that like button. No way, actually, destroy it. We're millennials. We love seeing likes. Catch you next time. Whoop-ow!